April 9, 1970, Vung Tau Air Base, South Vietnam. The humid night air pressed against the tarmac like a living thing, heavy with diesel fumes and the distant rumble of artillery. Floodlights carved harsh shadows across the concrete as maintenance crews performed their final checks on a lone C-130 Hercules transport. Its aluminum skin gleamed dully under the artificial illumination, bearing the unremarkable tail number 62-1787 and the call sign that would soon become legend, Ghost 21. Captain Robert Bobby Ellis wiped perspiration from his flight helmet visor as he reviewed the evening's cargo manual. At 28, Ellis represented the new generation of military aviators, college-educated, technically proficient, and quietly confident in American technological superiority. Behind him, loadmasters secured wooden crates marked with Royal Australian Air Force classifications and red-striped security seal. The cargo bay held 47 containers of varying sizes, each containing fragments of what intelligence officers called the greatest intelligence windfall of the Southeast Asian conflict, captured Viet Cong communication equipment, cipher keys, and operational documents seized during Operation Townsville just days earlier. The radio crackled with departure clearance from Da Nang Control. Ghost 21, you are cleared for immediate departure. Maintain heading 092 degrees, altitude 8,000 feet. Weather reports show clear skies over the South China Sea. Ellis acknowledged with the practiced calm of a pilot who had logged over 400 combat hours in Vietnamese airspace. Outside the cockpit windows, the sea stretched eastward like black glass, reflecting scattered stars that seemed impossibly distant from the war-torn landscape below. None of the five-man crew aboard Ghost 21 anticipated danger that night. The mission profile appeared routine, a simple transfer flight from the Australian sector to Clark Air Base in the Philippines, where American cryptographers would analyze the captured intelligence materials. The route would take them over relatively secure maritime airspace, away from known anti-aircraft positions, and beyond the range of most North Vietnamese surface-to-air missiles. In the hours before takeoff, Lieutenant Colonel James Mitchell of the Royal Australian Air Force had dismissed concerns with characteristic Australian directness. We're flying papers around like they're nuclear warheads. It's overkill, mate. The attitude reflected a broader Allied confidence that technological superiority and careful planning could minimize risks in what many considered the closing phases of direct American involvement in Vietnam. The Lockheed C-130 Hercules represented the backbone of American military logistics, a testament to engineering pragmatism designed for the unglamorous but essential work of keeping armies supplied. Ghost 21's four Allison T-56A-15 turboprop engines generated 4,590 shaft horsepower, enabling the aircraft to carry payloads exceeding 40,000 pounds, while maintaining cruising speeds of 374 miles per hour. The Hercules had proven its worth across countless missions throughout Southeast Asia, from resupplying isolated special forces camps to conducting psychological warfare leaflet drops over enemy territory. Its rugged construction allowed operations from unpaved airstrip, while its spacious cargo bay could accommodate everything from artillery peak to field hospitals. Ghost 21's specific configuration included enhanced communication equipment for coordination with multiple Allied command structures, additional fuel tanks for extended range operations, and reinforced cargo restraint systems designed to secure sensitive materials during adverse weather conditions. The aircraft's navigation suite incorporated both conventional radio beacons and the emerging Lawrence C long-range positioning system, providing multiple redundant methods for determining precise location over the vast expanses of the South China Sea. The cargo bay contained the fruits of Operation Townsville, a joint Australian-American intelligence coup that had netted the largest cache of enemy communication materials captured to that point in the conflict. Australian forces operating in Phuoc Toi province had overrun a previously unknown Viet Cong signals intelligence center, seizing documents that detailed North Vietnamese communication protocol, agent networks, and planned offensive operations. Among the captured materials were Soviet-manufactured encryption devices, handwritten cipher keys, and correspondence between regional commanders that revealed the sophisticated organization underlying what many Americans still perceived as a guerrilla insurgency. American intelligence analysts had immediately recognized the strategic value of the Townsville material. The documents provided unprecedented insight into North Vietnamese command structures, supply routes, and operational planning. Equally important, The captured cipher equipment offered opportunities to decode months of previously intercepted radio transmissions, potentially unraveling entire spy networks operating throughout South Vietnam. The decision to transport these materials to American cryptographic facility in the Philippines reflected both their importance and the limitations of field analysis capabilities in the combat zone. At 21:42 hours, Ghost 21 lifted off from Vung Tao's main runway, climbing steadily into the humid night air. Air traffic control radars tracked the aircraft's progress as it gained altitude and turned eastward toward the South China Sea. The flight path would take the Hercules approximately 30 kilometers offshore before turning northeast toward the Philippines, a route chosen to minimize exposure to coastal anti-aircraft defenses while maintaining communication with friendly air traffic. The initial phase of the flight proceeded according to plan. Ellis reported normal engine parameters and navigation system functionality as Ghost 21 reached its assigned altitude of 8,000. Radio communications remained clear and routine, with the crew acknowledging standard position reports and weather updates. The aircraft's transponder signal appeared strong and consistent on air traffic control displays, indicating proper operation of identification equipment that would help distinguish the transport from potentially hostile aircraft in the congested airspace over South Vietnam. At approximately 22:15 hours, 33 minutes after takeoff, Ghost 21 transmitted its final position report to Da Nang Control. The aircraft was proceeding normally along its assigned route, approximately 30 kilometers southeast of Longjian. Weather conditions remained favorable, with unlimited visibility and light winds. Captain Ellis reported no mechanical problems or unusual observations. The transmission concluded with the standard acknowledgement of the next scheduled communication time, 15 minutes later. That communication never came. At 22:30 hours, Da Nang Control attempted to raise Ghost 21 on the assigned frequency. The call met only static. Control operators tried alternate frequencies and emergency channels, still silence. The aircraft's transponder signal, which had been tracking steadily across radar screens, simply vanished. No emergency beacon activated. No distress call broke through the radio noise. The Hercules transport, its crew, and its cargo of captured secrets had simply ceased to exist in the electronic world of modern warfare. The initial response reflected standard procedures for overdue aircraft. Control towers along Ghost 21's intended route attempted communication on all available frequencies. Navy vessels operating in the South China Sea monitored emergency frequencies and swept the horizon for signs of distress. The response was systematic, professional, and ultimately futile. The vast darkness of the South China Sea had swallowed Ghost 21 without leaving an electronic trace. Within 2 hours, Air Force Rescue Coordination Centers had launched search aircraft from bases throughout South Vietnam and Thailand. HH-53 rescue helicopters equipped with night vision systems swept the coastal waters near Ghost 21's last known position. P-3, Orion Maritime Patrol aircraft, utilized sophisticated radar and electronic detection equipment to scan hundreds of square miles of ocean surface. Navy destroyers altered course to participate in the expanding search effort, their powerful searchlights probing the darkness for any sign of wreckage or survivors. The search continued through the night and into the following day, expanding to cover thousands of square miles of the South China Sea. Aircraft flew grid patterns at varying altitudes, searching for the distinctive orange of life raft or the metallic glint of aircraft debris. Electronic equipment monitored emergency frequencies for any signal from survival radio that crew members might have activated after a forced landing or ditching. Underwater listening device detected no sounds of aircraft wreckage settling on the ocean floor. By the morning of April 11th, 40 hours after Ghost 21's disappearance, the official search had expanded to include assets from 3 nations and covered an area larger than many American states. Yet despite the massive effort and sophisticated technology deployed, searchers had found no trace of the missing aircraft. The silence was absolute and increasingly ominous. The first break in the mystery came from an unexpected source. An Australian Army patrol operating near Longjian reported hearing explosions during the night of April 9th, approximately 2 hours after Ghost 21's scheduled departure time. The soldiers initially dismissed the sounds as distant artillery fire, a common occurrence in the contested coastal regions of South Vietnam. Only when news of the missing aircraft reached their unit commander did the patrol leader connect the explosions to the time frame of Ghost 21's disappearance. Military intelligence officers immediately interviewed the Australian patrol members, seeking precise details about the explosions they had heard. The soldiers described a series of sharp detonations, different in character from artillery fire or bombing missions. The sounds had come from the southeast, roughly consistent with Ghost 21's intended flight path. Most significantly, the timing of the explosions coincided almost exactly with the aircraft's last known position and the moment when its transponder signal vanished from radar screens. This testimony transformed the investigation from a search for accident survivors into a potential combat incident analysis. Intelligence officers began examining reports of enemy anti-aircraft activity in the region during the preceding weeks. They discovered that North Vietnamese forces had recently moved several 37mm anti-aircraft guns into positions along the coast near Long Gian. These weapons, while primarily intended to defend against low-flying attack aircraft, possessed sufficient range and firepower to threaten transport aircraft flying at Ghost 21's assigned altitude. The possibility that Ghost 21 had been shot down rather than lost to mechanical failure carried profound implications. If enemy forces had successfully engaged the Hercules, they might have observed its crash site and potentially recovered portions of its cargo. The captured intelligence materials aboard the aircraft represented years of painstaking counterintelligence work and contained information that could compromise Allied operations throughout Southeast Asia. On April 12th, the third day after Ghost 21's disappearance, an American UH-1 Huey helicopter conducting visual searches discovered burned aircraft debris in a heavily forested area, approximately 15 kilometers inland from Long Gian. The wreckage appeared consistent with a large transport aircraft, though the pieces were scattered over several hundred meters and showed evidence of intense fire damage. The location was roughly 10 kilometers from Ghost 21's intended flight path, suggesting the aircraft had deviated from its planned route before crashing. Recovery teams immediately secured the crash site and began the painstaking process of cataloging and analyzing the wreckage. Initial examination confirmed that the debris came from a C-130 Hercules aircraft, with serial numbers matching those of Ghost 21. However, the wreckage pattern puzzled investigators. The debris appeared to show evidence of both aerial explosion and ground impact, suggesting the aircraft might have suffered catastrophic damage while airborne before crashing into the jungle. More troubling was what the crash site did not contain. Despite intensive searching, recovery teams found no human remains and no trace of the cargo bay or its contents. The section of the aircraft where intelligence materials had been stored was simply absent from the wreckage field. This absence seemed inconsistent with a normal aircraft, where cargo typically remains near the main wreckage even after severe crashes. Vietnamese civilians living near the crash site provided additional pieces to the emerging puzzle. Several villagers reported seeing aircraft flying at unusually low altitude on the night of April 9th, followed by explosions and fires in the forest. More significantly, they described the sound of vehicles moving through the jungle in the hours after the crash, suggesting organized recovery efforts by unknown parties. American intelligence analysts faced an uncomfortable conclusion. Ghost 21 had not simply crashed, but had been deliberately targeted, shot down, and subsequently looted by enemy forces. The sophisticated planning required for such an operation indicated advanced knowledge of the flight schedule and cargo contents. This suggested either a serious breach of operational security or sophisticated intelligence collection by North Vietnamese agents. The implications extended far beyond the loss of a single aircraft and its crew. The captured materials aboard Ghost 21 contained cipher keys and communication procedures that compromised the security of Allied operations throughout the region. Within 48 hours of confirming the aircraft's loss, American and Australian intelligence services began the massive task of changing encryption systems, altering communication procedures, and relocating personnel whose identities might have been compromised by the captured document. The process of damage control consumed months and affected thousands of military personnel across Southeast Asia. Radio frequencies were changed, code words were replaced, agent networks were relocated or disbanded entirely. The intelligence coup of Operation Townsville, which had promised to provide unprecedented insight into enemy operations, had instead become a counterintelligence disaster that potentially compromised years of Allied intelligence work. Captain Ellis and his crew joined the growing roster of American servicemen officially listed as missing in action. Their families received the standard notifications and condolences, but no definitive answers about their fate. The official accident report classified the loss as cause undetermined, though classified annexes detailed the suspected shoot-down and capture of the aircraft's cargo. In the months following Ghost 21's disappearance, American signals intelligence detected changes in North Vietnamese communication patterns that suggested effective use of the captured materials. Enemy radio traffic became more sophisticated and better encrypted. Previously reliable intelligence sources went silent. Operational security improved markedly across North Vietnamese military units, indicating systematic application of the counterintelligence information contained in the stolen document. The loss of Ghost 21 became a case study in the vulnerabilities of military intelligence. The incident highlighted how a single security breach could unravel extensive intelligence networks and compromise ongoing operations. It demonstrated the sophisticated capabilities of North Vietnamese intelligence services and their ability to conduct complex operations behind Allied lines. Years after the war's end, former North Vietnamese officers would confirm that Ghost 21 had indeed been deliberately targeted and shot down. The operation had been planned for weeks, based on intelligence about Allied communication intercept operations in the Australian sector. Enemy agents had identified the intelligence value of materials captured during Operation Townsville and had prepared to intercept any attempt to transport those materials out of South Vietnam. The shootdown itself had been executed by a specially trained anti-aircraft equipped with radar-guided weapons. The unit had positioned itself along known transport routes and waited for an opportunity to engage a high-value target. Ghost 21's flight path and schedule had been compromised through a combination of signals, intelligence, and human espionage, allowing enemy forces to predict the aircraft's route with deadly accuracy. The recovery of Ghost 21's cargo had been equally well planned. Ground forces had prepared to immediately secure any crash site and evacuate valuable materials before Allied rescue forces could respond. The operation demonstrated a level of coordination and sophistication that challenged American assumptions about enemy capabilities and organization. The intelligence materials recovered from Ghost 21 provided North Vietnamese forces with unprecedented insight into Allied intelligence operations. The captured documents revealed the extent of American signals intelligence capability, identified key personnel and facilities, and exposed operational methods that enemy forces could counter or exploit. The information allowed North Vietnamese intelligence services to restructure their own operations and develop more effective countermeasures against Allied intelligence collection. The strategic impact of Ghost 21's loss extended well beyond the immediate compromise of specific operations. The incident forced a fundamental reassessment of operational security procedures and intelligence handling protocols throughout the American military establishment. New procedures were implemented for transporting sensitive materials, including enhanced escort requirements and communication security measures. The human cost of the operation remained largely hidden from public. The families of Ghost 21's crew members endured decades of uncertainty about their loved one's fate. Official investigations provided few answers, and the classified nature of the aircraft's mission limited the information that could be shared with grieving relatives. The crew members joined thousands of other American servicemen whose precise fate in Southeast Asia remained unknown. Captain Ellis's widow received his posthumous Air Medal and Purple Heart in a quiet ceremony at Travis Air Force Base. The citations made no mention of the classified mission or the strategic importance of the cargo her husband had died attempting to protect. For security reasons, she could never be told the full story of his final flight or the intelligence disaster that followed his disappearance. The broader implications of Ghost 21's loss influenced American policy discussion of the conduct war in Southeast. The incident provided additional evidence of North Vietnamese sophistication and capability, challenging arguments that the conflict could be resolved through conventional military pressure alone. The intelligence compromise demonstrated that even the most sensitive operations remained vulnerable to enemy penetration and attack. Military historians would later identify the Ghost 21 incident as representative of broader intelligence failures that characterized the later phases of American involvement in Vietnam. The episode illustrated the challenges of maintaining operational security in a complex, multilateral conflict where information moved through multiple channels and security procedures varied among Allied forces. The loss also highlighted the evolution of the conflict from a conventional military struggle to an increasingly sophisticated intelligence war. Both sides had developed elaborate systems for collecting, analyzing, and acting upon intelligence information. Success often depended less on battlefield prowess than on the ability to penetrate enemy plans while protecting one's own operational secrets. The technological aspects of the Ghost 21 operation revealed the growing importance of electronic warfare in modern conflicts. The enemy's ability to track and target the aircraft demonstrated sophisticated radar and communication capabilities that matched or exceeded many Allied systems. The incident provided early evidence of the technological sophistication that would characterize future conflict. In the classified post-incident analysis, American intelligence officers identified multiple security failures that had contributed to the loss of Ghost 21. Communication procedures had been compromised. Flight schedules had been transmitted over insecure channels. The cargo manifest had been distributed too widely among personnel without adequate security clearances. Each failure had been minor in isolation, but collectively, they had provided enemy forces with sufficient information to plan and execute a successful attack. The remedial measures implemented following the Ghost 21 loss became standard procedures for sensitive intelligence operations in subsequent conflict. Enhanced communication security, compartmentalized information distribution, and randomized flight schedules became routine elements of operational planning. The lessons learned from this single intelligence disaster influenced American military doctrine for decades. The environmental factors that contributed to Ghost 21's loss reflected the unique challenges of conducting military operations in Southeast Asia. The region's geography provided numerous hiding places for anti-aircraft weapons and made visual detection of enemy positions extremely difficult. Weather patterns limited the effectiveness of aerial reconnaissance and created opportunities for enemy forces to move undetected. The political context surrounding the Ghost 21 incident occurred during a period of transition in American policy towards Southeast Asia. The Nixon administration was implementing its Vietnamization strategy, transferring increasing responsibility to South Vietnamese forces while gradually reducing the American military presence. Intelligence operations like the analysis of captured materials represented efforts to maximize the value of remaining American resources in the region. The incident also reflected the complex multilateral nature of the Allied effort in Vietnam. The involvement of Australian forces in capturing the original intelligence materials, combined with American responsibility for transporting and analyzing those materials, created coordination challenges that enemy forces successfully exploited. Different national procedures and security standards provided opportunities for intelligence penetration. The technical analysis of Ghost 21's wreckage provided valuable lessons about aircraft survivability and crew protection. The fragmentation patterns suggested that the Hercules had been struck by multiple projectiles, overwhelming its defensive systems and causing catastrophic structural failure. The absence of survival equipment activation indicated that the crew had little or no warning before the aircraft was destroyed. Subsequent modifications to C-130 aircraft included enhanced defensive systems and improved survival equipment. Communication procedures were revised to provide multiple redundant methods for maintaining contact with transport aircraft operating in contested airspace. The changes reflected hard-learned lessons about the vulnerability of even supposedly secure air corridors. The psychological impact of the Ghost 21 loss extended throughout the Allied intelligence community in Southeast Asia. The incident demonstrated that no operation, regardless of planning or security measures, was immune to enemy penetration and attack. This realization contributed to increased caution in operational planning and reduced willingness to take risks with sensitive intelligence material. The loss also affected morale among transport aircrew members, who understood the classified nature of many missions they conducted. The knowledge that enemy forces possessed detailed intelligence about Allied operations and the capability to act on that intelligence created an atmosphere of heightened vulnerability that influenced crew performance and mission planning. The diplomatic repercussions of the Ghost 21 incident remained largely hidden from public view, but significantly affected Allied coordination in the region. The compromise of Australian-captured intelligence materials strained cooperation between American and Australian intelligence services. New procedures were implemented to protect sensitive information sharing, but the incident created lasting tensions about operational security and information control. The media coverage of Ghost 21's disappearance was minimal and focused on the human interest aspects of the missing crew, rather than the strategic implications of the intelligence loss. Military censors successfully prevented detailed reporting about the aircraft's mission or cargo, maintaining the operational security that had been compromised by the shootdown itself. The families of missing crew members became inadvertent participants in the broader political debate about American involvement in Southeast Asia. Their stories of loss and uncertainty were used by both supporters and critics of the war to advance their respective arguments. Though the classified nature of the Ghost 21 mission limited the specific details that could be discussed publicly. The long-term historical significance of the Ghost 21 incident lies not in its immediate tactical impact, but in its demonstration of the intelligence warfare that characterized the later phases of the Vietnam conflict. The episode illustrated how technological sophistication and careful planning on both sides created a complex environment where traditional measures of military success became increasingly irrelevant. The incident also provided early evidence of the challenges that would characterize future conflicts involving non-state actors and irregular warfare. The ability of North Vietnamese forces to successfully target and exploit a sophisticated intelligence operation demonstrated capabilities that exceeded conventional assessments of enemy strength and organization. The technological lessons learned from Ghost 21's loss influenced the development of defensive systems for transport aircraft and enhanced communication security procedures that remain in use today. The incident contributed to the evolution of military intelligence doctrine and operational security procedures that have been applied in subsequent conflicts around the world. The human stories behind the Ghost 21 incident, the crew members who never returned, the families who never received answers, the intelligence analysts whose years of work were compromised in a single night, represent the personal costs of the broader intelligence war that raged alongside the more visible military conflict in Southeast Asia. In the end, the disappearance of Ghost 21 represented more than the loss of a single aircraft and its crew. The incident symbolized the complexity and moral ambiguity that characterized American involvement in Vietnam, where technological superiority and careful planning could not guarantee success against a determined and sophisticated enemy. The jungle that claimed Ghost 21 has long since reclaimed the crash site, where investigators found scattered debris in April 1970. The specific location remains classified in American military record, though Vietnamese villagers occasionally discover corroded metal fragments that hint at the drama that once unfolded in their remote corner of the world. The legacy of Captain Ellis and his crew lives on in the lessons their sacrifice taught about operational security, intelligence warfare, and the human costs of military service. Their names are engraved on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., among the thousands of other Americans who never returned from Southeast Asia. The intelligence materials that cost so much to capture and so much more to lose remain lost to history. The codes have long since been changed, the networks disbanded, the personnel relocated or retired. But the principles demonstrated by the Ghost 21 incident, the importance of operational security, the sophistication of intelligence warfare, and the vulnerability of even the most carefully planned operations, continue to influence military planning and strategy. History is not made of victories, it's made of voices that refuse to disappear. What should we cover next? Subscribe and share your thoughts on this video. Your feedback and support are immensely valuable and help me keep improving the content.